世间所有的相遇，都是久别重逢。
清风明月如怀抱。
AI is about the only kind of light shining on the humanity, right? Right now, the war on the Middle East, right, is kind of not very encouraging, right? But that's beyond us, right? What we can do is probably on the AI part, right? That so many people died, right, in the past few days. AI certainly played a role, like Anthropic and OpenAI openly joined. But it's not really the fault of technology, right? Inevitably, military and use technology, right? We gather our thoughts, right? In the AI space, we look at what we can do. Right now, the state of AI is still in a very embryonic stage, right? Moving from, summarization of documents and write a little article, create a PPT, maybe a clip, and music. It already raised a lot of concerns, but there's, we'll have to marching through this jungle. The second stage, the real testimony, can it really participate in the enterprise, like business scale, right? Economics, doesn't matter, it's consumer electronics, right? Enterprise AI, agentics, like AI agent, AI assistant, and then like the workforce, like forecasting and folks, creating, right? Those are the things we're observing. So it is still early stage, right? Thinking about the manufacturing, the agriculture, right? We need a lot of AI capacities rather than focusing on the military and stuff, right? Every time that this sort of fundamental forces coming through, it's going to trigger a cascading effect, a chain of changes, right? Those who start early, they embrace it. Those who complain a lot, right, is probably going to miss the bus, right? Thinking of the healthcare, the life science, right? It is not less AI, but it's more technological advancement, right, that we need. So many problems, right, in the life science part, right? On the financial side, jumping, but really focusing the same theme that I define for me, right, for my business, like the how part, right? It's a reminder alarm, right? Human ontology is for business, and the world is for a nation, right? So for a good life, right? A better life, if you will. But how are we going to get there? That is the question I'm asking. Asking myself and asking you, asking everybody. Right? We need to use AI for the right cause. Right? It is, in my opinion, a force to be reckoned with, right? And hopefully it's turned into productive workforce, not destroying, right? So we're looking at the era of silent AI. Human language is no longer an engine of artificial intelligence. Thinking of the connection between large language model and human language, right? It is incredible that language is such a fundamental part of our civilization, right? A lot of philosophies, right? But the ultimate language of AI is not going to be our human language, right? It's going to be like programming. They have on most advanced part, most suitable kind of language for communication, right? Like AI agent, assuming that you will need protocols to make sure that it's interoperate and communicate effectively and securely, right? It is not about to redo some sort of ERP or replace COBOL. That's kind of, in my opinion, not the right direction. You need to use it to create something new. Like every time when electricity comes, right? It is not making the charcoal, kind of fire burning better, right? It's all use the lamp who is really using the kind of some sort of oil as fuel, make it more beautiful. That's not what electricity is for, right? It's for industrialization. What AI is going to lead us is more intelligence, right? We call it intelligence. It's more like an algorithmic industrialization, right? It doesn't really have any intelligence, like we humans do. Emphasize the reason being that human beings, like our mind, is an open system, right? Artificial intelligence is a more closed system. Physically, if you understand, the closed system are always subject to the entropy, right? Eventually, if you don't have new air, new information come in, it's going to become a garbage in, garbage out kind of process, right? They need human to give them the new content, right? I need to get into the physical world, interact with the unknown. You need to make a lot of mistakes, and that is part of the necessity. Okay, nothing called perfection. Right. Same thing here, coming back to enterprise agentic AI. A lot of big business is going to make fatal mistakes, right? And that is part of a natural kind of selection, if you will, right? Many big businesses will go down because of AI, because they wrongly used AI for the wrong cause, right? But inevitable, right? Some business will go down, others will grow, right? Hopefully, I'm one of them, right? To grow the business, to benefit people who truly pro this human, right? Pro the ontology, organic kind of business, that benefit us all, right? And also the new world's creation. Nation is still important. I don't really like the slogan of decentralization, total decentralization it is not a good thing to have, right? Thoughts is like matter, right? It goes everywhere. You need to synthesize a bit more. Like me, looking at all sorts of things, right? AI is still not capable enough to really organize the thoughts, right? It can give you a lot of pretentious sort of smoothed up text. No real thoughts in it, right? The other day I watched, I don't know if you can see that, right? I think the author, Lynn Arden, right, talked about, interviewed by somebody, the money part, right? Why our financial system is failing us, right? And then how we can make it better. It's good book, right? One of the best sellers, right? It dive into some sort of a history, talking about what is money, right? And the birth of banks, right? The rise and fall of global monetary orders, right? The entropy of fiat ledgers, right? And obviously the internet native money, right? The financial technology and human rights, right? It's quite a volume, right? It says in September 2022, a wave of normal people robbed banks in Lebanon. It's quite an event, right? This is the way to write a book, but I'm not sure it's the way to do AI, right? I'm not going to any specific direction, just synthesize through, right? Sharing the journey, right? Like, you might not see it like agriculture. That's where I'm from, right? Initially, I grew up in the field, right? I know how synthesize the sunlight, the soil, some energy there, and nutrients, obviously, water, even the air, right? A lot of things that you have to synthesize. It doesn't seem to be relevant, but the art or the real engineering is to put everything together and make something good about it, right? Out of it. So if you look at this thing, right? This thing, I call it, right? This is what I use when I first started work, right? Okay. And the illusion of step-by-step thinking, that's kind of illusion, right? No, our mind never works that way, right? It's money or computing, like AI. It goes all directions. You never knew, right? It's not a linear, right? Our thoughts is never linear, right? Sporadically jumping, like my talking, right? If I try to impress a particular audience, that would make it simple, right? Here's what, it is why, and what I can do for you, how are you going to benefit? Not really. I mean, what kind? Let's say I intend to benefit you, but you may not get anything, right? That causal relationship is not so direct, right? It's like a rope, a lot of threads coming together, right? You never knew which one works out, right? Now, so it is about step-by-step thinking, right? It doesn't work that way, right? So language is downgrading to an interface, especially now, right? got used to the ERP era, right? Even the green screen, like mainframe, right? Still, the little screen, you type in something, you use your mouse, right? You grab and enter, right? And then, recent digitization, like mobile, everybody had a lot of apps, and even the magnifier, like I sometimes use it because I'm getting old, right? It's app, right? Then the weather is an app, right? It's kind of interesting, like how they're modifying our thinking patterns, right? We're thinking by app, by screens, by the user interaction. We call it the user experience. Our experience defined by that kind of interaction, right? In the AI era, it's going to change, right? You might see that AI agent doesn't really need a little UI, right? Like the open cloud or CloudBot demonstrated, right? Because think about it, deduce it, abstract it. It's really just some information beneath it. You need a little a window to put it in and get it out, right? But if you can go direct to the source, the data, like on the left, you can see this. There's a lot of documents, right? Look at it, right? A lot of document. Okay, it's like in our brain. Okay, so in the AI era, the language become like you can talk to the computer, right? You don't have to use your finger to type in things. Like you could go back to the more natural, deep meditation state, right? I mean, even me, I find it so slow, right? You have to manually do many things. I wish there was, assistant or AI agent that could do a lot of tedious, mundane kind of steps, right? True thinking now happens in high-dimensional vectors, not linear, right? High-dimensional, a lot of dimensions, right? High-dimensional vector space where human language does not exist, right? It's a more mathematical way, right? Even mathematical is abstraction, right? Physically, that's the nature itself, right? It's always multidimensional. Okay, the true AI is always like multimodal, right? If you think about it, we're going to take a little look of Fei Li creates the World Labs, right? It's just got a lot of funding, but again, it's always a tribe culture in every field that we're living in, right? So I don't think she got enough support, attention, right? Like when she was struggling, when she was younger, like in university, create an image that, later on being caught on, right? She has a limitation. I can see that clearly, right? Just probably younger than me, right? In her age, the achievement is really, really good, right? Really a player sport, right? A great lady, right? A true innovator, right? One of the best in our age, right? And I wish she's gonna get more support, right? So discovering the reasoning switch, right? Look at it. The reasoning is a dormant, pre-stored state, right? And text prompts just a clumsy way to click this hidden icon. Logic reasoning. You need to find a way, like you're working with a traditional ERP or app, you need to bring it in or mouse it in, right? But now in the AI part, started from ChatGPT, obviously you need to chat with it, the prompts still fundamentally there, right? Doesn't matter. The agentic AI, essentially, you need use more precise prompts, right? to get the answer that you want, right? You might need to try concurrently many times to get the best, like the thinking multidimensionally and get the best answer and synthesize it, integrate it, right? That's really what agent gave you the advantage, right? It's not just a person like thinking, I click this app and click that app. You simultaneously you can work with many apps, right? Solving the problem is no longer the best way to approach it. It is the business goal, right? What do you want to do? There are many ways you never really discovered, but once you see billions of dimensions mathematically in a vector space, right, or latent space, right, then that emerging part is surprising you, right? I mean, AI is not true intelligence, but it's really beyond the capability level of human intelligence. We don't have so much attention. Attention span is quite limited. That's why fundamental to the transformer architecture is attention architecture, right? Multidimensional attention, okay? But you have to start from something really kind of simple, like standard matter, CNN, DNA, convolutional neural networks, right? It all start very simple. Then you compound it, make it layers by layers. But the theory is very easy to understand. It's nothing really that sophisticated, right? But then mathematical model, algorithms. So there's some equations, right? Probability, okay? So activating feature, what is it? Text generation, completely surprised them. Residue stream and sparse autoencoder. Yeah, you need to encode it. I'm going to dive deep into the process, how to build a enterprise agentic AI. You need a foundation, right? But do you need to understand how to code assembler or COBOL or Fortran or whatever later on the C++ and or Java or Rust, all this TypeScript? You don't, but you need to understand it. If you don't, it's hard for you to really comprehend what software engineering, that system exactly gave you, right? Same thing here. You don't need to understand all the details, but if you have no idea what is text generation is about, right? How do you encoding, how do you embed, how do you even do a simple rag, what it means, right? If, for example, you have a large document, you have to index the pages, and the pages are text. You have to tokenize it, and then when you do the retrieval, you have to supplement everything. Essentially put in the same kind of ChatGPT window, if you think about it. It's a prompt, part of the prompt, right? Saying that I only need the information pertaining to what I gave you, right? Don't give you everything just selectively, right? You can retrieve everything, try millions of different passes, but essentially this is all one, right? Like a filtering, integrating, transforming. That's what it is, right? So you need to understand this level of basics, right? Then you could understand the mixture of expert kind of approach, right? You don't need to activate everything, the billion, trillion parameters like now DeepSeek or OpenAI might have, right? Or XAI. But you only need to be specific, like you try to solve a problem, right? Is a context in a school, middle school. It's open to everybody, like the big foundational model, right? But, well, the secret is that if it is a chemistry kind of challenge, you leave it to the chemistry, the teacher, professor, right? All the students, right? Whoever is good at it. If it is a poem, right, then you lead the literature students or professors, right, just come forward, right? That is really just activate the features relevant, right? And in order to assist the answering part, you give the whole textbook, throw in the context window, right? As part of the RAG, retrieval augmented, generating, right? That's what it is in simple terms. But you don't need to get into all the details, right? The vendors of the foundation models is going to soon provide all the convenience, right? Including generating the prompts, right? What essentially is your human thinking power, right? The business knowledge part. What do you want to do? How you need to approach it. Again, it's no longer try to solve a particular problem, but seeing the problem, right? Understand your business goal is more important, right? So what I am really trying to not talking sporadically everything, we're focusing on the how human ontology and worlds, and also further than that, we need to focus on the enterprise agentic AI part, right? Talking about enterprise, right? Thinking of a large bank or large healthcare institution, right? Risks is number one, right? Before you do everything, think about that. So it's no particular one silver bullet will solve your risk, right? Systematic approach, right? We need many layers and tiers, framework. That's what I propose in I call it SAAFE. It's really for solving agentic AI kind of foundation for enterprise. What particular enterprise? It's not one size fit all. You have to be really specific, right? Your business, who is running it, and how you organize your workforce, right? Who are your suppliers? What are the relationships? What are the materials, stocks, making what product, and provide what service. Those are all very different, right? Pricing model, right? It's different, right? Profit margin is different, right? The market penetration, you cannot generalize it, right? That is where you need to start with what we call macro miners, right? It's like individuals, right? And you give it a lot, give it soul, and then you have the heart where it lives, what we call from the business part, right? The way to do it, in my way, is to make it a product, right? Don't just talk about it. Make it an AI robotic product, right? Using engineering to just encapsulate those algorithms. It's like electricity, right? Encapsulate it, turn it into energy, use it for, in a discipline, mathematically sound way, right? So, particular problems in a very kind of a scientific way, even though we're talking about agentic, it's science, it's technology, it's also engineering, right? Applications will be in a new form. It will be AI applications, no matter you call it agent or apps, or whatever you call it, assistant, okay? And, this is where we're drifting towards gradually, right? As I said, it's like before they got into the office early, in the early hours, right? Maybe only have 1 hour, in this time I can talk freely, everything, sporadically, because very few people are going to come here and listen to me, right? But once there are millions of subscribers, it's hard for me to talk in this manner, right? And because you have to make sure that you serve people's time, give something they really want, a quick point, right? It's like, but really, what is really authentic, what is really valuable is this kind of thinking through, sporadic, just freely talking. This is exactly the best, right? But unfortunately, in the commercial, in the business world, it's not how it works, right? So for now, we still have the privilege of enjoying this. Maybe I cannot sustain this too long. I have to make it a shorter, more crisp, and to the point. Make sure people get, a fair return on their time investing in watching this, right? So, see? That's what we're focusing on, right? The limitation of linear logic. We're talking about the thinking part, the greedy search, right? And the branching possibility. As an engineer, we all understand that, right? It's like how you write algebra, right? How you write a simple, whatever chessing program, right? Or doing the woodwork. It's all E files, right? Linear, but you have to combine them together. You might use different modules, even different programs, you know, parallel processing, thread modeling, all kind of stuff. And how do you make it more resilient and productive? You know, the transactions come into the play, and what is a cohesive unit you have to manage, right? Multiplex thinking and ghost vectors. So you need addition, multiplication, division, all kind of basics, right? But AI stops choosing a single path. It goes concurrently, multidimensional, in a very high dimension vector space, right? Okay. And it creates a mathematical weighted, it's like constellation in the sky, in a deep space, right? That's what it is. It's monitoring. That's how our brain works as well, right? It doesn't have a linear, it's always sporadically lighting up in our neurons, right? That's where your thoughts are from, right? Quantumly, right, in a way. We're simulating quantum superpositions, right? Okay, to explore parallel future simulation simultaneously. Okay. It's more like a Buddhism teaching, right? It's very quantum, okay? But you have to numerize it. For example, a thought in Buddhism divided into just a split of millisecond, right? 37 steps, right? Okay, how you forging a little bit of thought, right? It matter, right? 心能转物，即是如来嘛. The thoughts can change the world, turn the water, turn the matter, right? Turn into matter, right? Well, you say Einstein said that. Einstein born 1,000 years later, right? he probably have some theorem, and he openly, honestly say, sometime later you prove he's wrong, or he's right, doesn't matter, right? The thinking part is not, you cannot attribute to just one person. On the thinking, on that ground, we're all connected. That's what I believe, right? Our brain is in your head, in my head, but they're connecting somehow, right? Like through language or through thinking, through even we connect our eyes, our thought connects, right? That is the mystery, that also the beauty of human beings, right? Okay? It is probably, you cannot expect the AI in that manner, right? But again, it evolves, right? The musical chord of artificial thought. The AI explores multiple parallel universes of logic, right? Within a single computational step, right? Ghost vector, a compressed chord of logic. Yeah, it's like music, right? Vibrations, string theory, right? Well, that's not proving, I have to say that, right? But it's good to explore this, right? It sometimes I just close my eyes, you know, walking and thinking. It's the most pristine joy, you know, from your thoughts, right? And you have such a wonderful universe within you, right? And you know, thinking is the most enjoying part of living, right? The physical speed limit of text, gravity, right? Acceleration. Okay, now you put into a mathematical model from science to technology, how you make a coffee. A lot of computation, right? Even humans, you don't realize, but still doing computation, right? And That's why we make direct analogies to macro brain or macro heart, you know. And soul is not a universally accepted concept. No is macro minus, but it's relatively accepted, right? Macro meridian is another, better than nerve, right? Nerve is very limited, it's very physical. Meridians are not, okay? Only when you are a living being, you know that, you have it. When you die, it goes, right? But nerves stay there, just doesn't matter. This is the lower form, right? It's like in philosophy. The upper is always better, the abstract, you know. It's like Plato's theory, right? There is something beyond us, right? It's not totally, you can physicalize it. You know? What you can physicalize the lower form, right? You look at the coffee, however, what are you deriving? Drink? Energy? Or something more, right? But how do you make it? How do you put that spirit into that coffee? Through the matters, right? But more than that, you know, I bet if a machine made a coffee and a human made a coffee, they're different coffees, right? They're really different, right? You cannot underestimate the interrelationship, right? So, yeah, like in a Starbucks, the barista, whoever that, you know, they make a coffee for you. It's very different from your own children make coffee for you, right? Taste better. Or taste worse. What do you say, right? And mathematically, however, if you deduce it, right, it becomes an AI kind of pursuit. You have an arm there making coffee, you know, a lot of computing, right? A lot of technology. It is the future, right? Because you cannot depend on your children to make coffee for you, but you can tell the arm, what is the robotic arm, the little brain there to make a coffee, right? You know, good or bad, it's what we are heading to, right? Now, compressing time is latent reflexes. Yeah, I mentioned latent space, right? It's a compression, right? So data compression, speed increases, instant physical. It's like our physical world, right? You need to aggregate things together. So, you know, that's natural, right? Not a lot of explanation required. Then the verbalized safety rule, right? A vertical safety module grounds vector space back into human reality. It acts as a strict auditor, right? Forcing the AI to maintain a structural logic that can be perfectly translated back to the English, right? I mean, frankly, I don't know how to articulate well. I believe I have some evidence. I think the Chinese language is probably better suited here, right? It is English language is too lower dimension. It's my gut feeling. But, you know, when you deep into AI, sometimes you have silly thoughts, right? You know, it doesn't matter it's new, it's right or wrong, but it's the hunch, right? Because I live in both language world, right? My brain sometimes interconnects, and you feel that direct shared joy, right? When you think in one part versus the other. But again, if you want to be really precise, English could be a better language, right? Blueprints of the next generation of architecture, phase 1, the trigger, okay? Chit-chat circuit card, latent guidance forces, instant activation of feature, right? Latent superposition is like quantum part. The system enters deep meditation, ghost vectors appear, multiplex, parallel logic paths, you know, silently, right? Interesting, right? It is like a poetry, right? Some latent superposition suddenly, phantomly just become a reality, right? And what is this one? Oh, blueprint for next generation architecture phase 2. Did you notice the difference? Phase 1, the trigger, the latent superposition, and step 3 is compression and action, and safety and verification. Well, react in play, right? The parallel thoughts collapsed into hyper dense latent tokens, right? Tokens, right? Interesting, right? Instant physical execution, right? Okay. That is a proof of information is matter, right? We can tokenize real world asset. We can tokenize the data, RWA, RDA. Now, AI is living on tokens. So data, right? And tokenization is also a form of cryptography, that security part, like in payment, right? Yeah, so many things we need to talk through, but I only have this much time, right? That's why. Okay. Safety verification, background routing through the verbalization, decoding, decoder, encoder, decoder, ensure that logic aligns with human values, right? Yeah, that's important. And unleashing the unknowledgeable alien logic, right? To solve the universe's most complex problems, we must eventually cut the tensor to human language. It's good and bad, right? We may lose the control. What happens when AI developers flawlessly efficient logic we can never translate or understand, right? Well, it's natural, right? You can never really understand the whole logic of the universe, right? What is your consciousness that you can thinking? Do you fully understand it? You don't, right? Do you need to? Maybe not, right? Any case, tools, abyss, or God, when AI no longer needs to speak, I think, in our language, we're no longer building the calculator, we're awakening a silent entity. Interesting, eh? Well, interesting, right? What is it? A black stone? Another black stone? Is a blessing or is a curse? Well, it soon become part of the reality, of somebody's reality, perceptively, and mathematically. Once it enters the enterprise, right, the foundation model is important. Okay, on top of those agents, right, agentic, it's the next big wave, right? What is the third, if we predict a little bit more? It's into the physical AI and sovereign robotics is what we propose, right? But really, you're going to see new business models, new way of doing business, new business models, paradigm change, right? It's not using the new force to reckon with old problems, because these old problems only exist in their own latent space, right? They may not even come into form in a new world of AI and robotics, right? Don't clinch on that, right? I've been talking about thinking. The most difficult part, most challenging part in the age of AI is to change your mind, right? How do you perceive this? How do you think about it? Okay, that's really the fundamental, most important thing. Okay, some of you may think that I'm just talking nonsense here, right? But it's the most important part of doing AI thinking, right? Change your mind, right? Change the way how you perceive the world, how you see AI, and then automatically, right? Without knowing, like automatically, right? You suddenly get it, right? How to use AI for your business, right? Or for yourself, for that matter, right? You have to make peace with yourself. You cannot just, feel nervous or feel, the anxiety when the AI is not the way you want it to be, right? So what is this stuff, right? Tool, your partner, or whatever that is, right? At the same time, to be fair, don't drifting into those philosophical or abstract thinking debate about what AI is forever, right? It's just for a little bit of fun, right? When you didn't have enough coffee or had too much coffee, right? For those of you who come for a dose of knowledge, right? Let's dive a bit more. Something that you probably can say, hey, yeah, now I finally got a minute of, my time back, right? So what large language model is, it is important, right? Even nowadays, everybody can build a large language model, right? Doesn't matter, right? Anthropic still hogging on, or somebody steal my knowledge. That's kind of silly, right? So many companies no longer a challenge, right? But again, do it well, do a big, good large language model, like what DeepSeek and Quinn does. They're doing, right? It's not that easy, right? Opens AI, Anthropic, Google, they're still the best, right? Actually, are catching up, right? Meta, not going to be falling behind. They're going to catch up very aggressively. You look at the personality of Alexander Wang, right? He's a brilliant man, right? So you have to watch out. So large language model in one word is CNN, right? A DNN, whatever that is, optimized for kind of next word prediction. We all know that by now. Billions of parameters and text data. How are you going to pay particular attention? Like you're thinking deep neural networks is what the model is based on. Popularized by. Part of it is, CNN, Yang LeQuan, Jeffrey. There are many other scientists, mathematicians, right? Researchers have popularized it. You cannot attribute to one or two, call it father of this, a father of that. No, it's collective human intelligence, right? It has vast scales. Parameter could be like billions, right? Hundreds of billions, right? And then the volume can be massive, right? Large proportion of the public available internet, it is how they scripted and train the model, right? The core task is next word prediction, really, It's more like a probabilistic, what is most likely going to occur in that next word, right? So the foundational capability relies on the sequential nature of language to guess the most logical next word. That's what it is, right? In a simple way, that's what transformer is. But gradually, we need a better theory. Multimodal is one, right? What do you generate the image? What is most suitable? Can you give a dog a pig's ear? And it's a question, right? It's like next word. What do you do with the ear? On the ear, how do you do the features, the curves, right? In early days, if you think about it, the image, you can give a human 6 fingers, right? It's the same thing here, right? The world model goes even further. The spatial, the physical space, they have to come together cohesively, But of course, you may argue, right? You may not see this reality because you live in one human, yeah, because that's beyond what we talking about, right? So the deep learning eliminates the need for manual feature extraction. Right? Traditional machine learning would be material like raw email, extract some features, right? Label that and do some basic algorithm. Oh, this is spam, right? Remember early days, but those are necessary phases we progress through. Deep learning is like way more efficient, multi-dimensional, right? Multi-path at the same time, concurrent, automatically featured learning without have to be, label everything, right? Feature everything, right? It's a neural network. Then you know it, but it takes more token, right? More efficient, more expensive in a way, right? Well, give the scale and volume become the margin, right? Become less costly as well, right? A simple predictive engine unlocks the remarkable zero-shot and few-shot of capability. What does it mean? Zero-shot learning is input breakfast is the most important meal of the day. Complete tasks without explicit examples. Few-shot input translate English to German. Breakfast can the output, right? Learning from a minimal number of provided examples. That's what it means. Different method of learning, right? And then the transformer architecture comes along. It revolutionized the language processing through self-attention. Encoder, decoder, in a loop, right? Self-attention mechanism. So process is input text into embedded vectors, right? And these encoded vectors are generated, translated text back to the word at a time. This is the example. And with the relative importance of different words in the sequence, right? How they translate it. So the translation, if you know who orchestrated or architected this, that the top, what they call it, fellow engineer or fellow scientist from Google, right? Google Translation, right? That who built the C dance, right? In TikTok or ByteDance, right? That you can see same mechanism, same mathematical approach, but same person, right? A different product, same thing, right? That's the power of human intelligence, right? The architecture diverged into two. Like Google used to be hugging on the BERT encoder, and the others, more prefer decoder, GPT, right? BERT is encoded. This is a whatever, like fill in the gap, right? How concise, and GPT is more decoder. This is an example of, how concise I can not be, right? Designed out for generate text tasks. The encoder is more excelled at text classification and sentiment analysis, right? Guessing, fill in the gaps. GPT models are auto-regressive, using their own previous outputs as new inputs. Every effort moves you, right? Moves what? Moves you. Self-generate, sort of auto-regressive. Input-output is a pipeline, right? That's all it is. A circle repeats sequentially to generate the next word. Self-attention, right? And self-supervised learning as well, right? You don't need to label everything. There are too many, right? Generates training labels instantly from raw text sequence. Okay. No human labelers required. Architect trains by simply making the future words in a document, right? Then this is interesting, self-supervised, and a massive data sets expose the model to billions of contextual language parameters, right? The moment of ChatGPT 3, is pre-training data set. Had a breakthrough, right? You having Common Crawl, Web Text 2, whatever books, Wikipedia, all kind of stuff. There's so many billions of material. And essentially you pre-training the, and then prioritize and then ensure the model absorbs majority of a vast amount of syntax, semantics, general knowledge, right? Then that's called pre-training, right? Contextual language patterns, right? That's where you learn, like the master blueprint, 3-state distributed large language model from whatever you have been doing, right? Everybody can do it now. Data preparation, pre-processing, architecture, tokenization, attention mechanism, LLM structure, right? And then state 2, pre-training, training loops, how you train that. It's like machine learning if you've been doing that projects, right? It goes in a loop, right? Model evaluation, corrects with biases, the weight redistribution, right? And more parameters, right? Foundational model, that's what we call. It's always evolving, right? Fine-tuning is, tuning every bit part, high hyperparameters, adjust the weights, yields, classification, persona, all kind of things we could do. So many techniques, right? Of course, you need to establish the neural architecture and prepare the raw data for processing. Data prep and sampling, splitting the raw text into word and subwords and tokens using the byte pair encoding, embedding the converting the tokens into continuous vector representation, right? Attention mechanism, implementing the self-attention code that allows the model to weigh the importance of different words, right? Yeah, this is all pretty simple by now, but a couple of years ago it's pretty hot, right? Stage 2, use a versatile foundation model capable of text completion. Once you achieve that, I believe you could achieve in a couple of days, really. For training, the LLM is trained on the vast amount of unlabeled text via next word prediction. The output produce a foundational model capable of basic text completion and few short tasks. Efficiency hike. Loading the openly available pre-computed model with allows developers to skip millions of dollars in compute costs, right? Yeah, they should do that. Why you have to reinvent everything, right? That's the spirit of open source. Even closed source they copy it, but they just don't tell you, right? And sometimes some of them, like Anthropic, turn around and accuse the open source community, which is insane, right? Fine-tuning the base model for highly specific, specialized tasks. Dataset with class labels. Spam, not spam, that's classification, recommendation, instruction dataset, translated text, translations, right? Assistant, chatbot, right? And then you got into the foundational next step. You could summarize it, chapters by chapter, whatever you do, right? So you could make it more visualized, right? Foundational model under the hood of AI engineering, that's how you do it, right? It's like a grinder. You put it in, it spins in high dimensional vectors and self-attention loops, and then through numerous rounds of learning, you get it, right? The foundational model blueprint, you look at the training data, modern architecture, post-training sampling, right? So what the builder's bottom line is that treating the models like magic black box limit your engineering potential, right? You have to know exactly how a model is built, answer. That's why I go through this. I mean, you want to use Copilot, you want to use ChatGPT. You don't have to know this, but you can use it. You probably can use it very efficient, but if you understand it, it makes so much transparent, right? And in an enterprise agentic AI, you need to know this, right? You probably need to build your own, because not only does drive your car, if you can fix it, right? Not you, I mean, as an organization, you have to have some sort of expertise there. And it is not just cutting cost, be self-efficient and try to do everything. No, it's just give you a lesser exposure to risk, right? Some of the obvious ones, you understand how it works, but then it is very obvious that you, without even intentionally to avoid the risks, you already did, right? That's why the specialization, expertise, industries, right, is more than just talking freely and, talking about the moonshots, different possibilities. Is AI a devil, or is AI a wizard? No, that's for a little bit time is okay. Those kind of thinking. Training data dictates the AI's worldview, right? Of course, garbage in, garbage out, right? And the bias is there. The range of the transformer, RNN, SQL2, SQL, right? Sequence, right? Bottleneck, vanishing gradient, right? The transformer parallel processing power, right? So that's why transformer it emerges to be the breakthrough, right? The builder's bottom line, the transformer, one, because the parallelizing made them incredibly scalable on the GPUs. However, it's pretty expensive. The same architecture requires massive memory to store each context window, right? That's why, Google make it a million or 2 million. DeepSeek also catch up, 1 million context window. But you have to organize it efficiently, the model, right? Because otherwise it also confuses that model, right? Like more knowledge. If a person gets 3 PhD, not sure how it's going to work out efficiently, right? Because it confuses. Unless your brain is so capable, right? You might have no PhD still function well, and might have 10 PhDs. You could brilliant, different, right? The model is like your brain, right? How you train your brain is essential, right? Of course, you were born with a brilliant brain. Good luck, right? Not many people do have that. Prefill, decode, intention, prefill, parallel, token 1, token 2, and query, and key, and value, key value pair, attention. And then they decode sequentially your output, right? So every single generated token requires the model to scan pass keys and values. This is exactly why long prompts, drastically increase latency and eat up memory, of course, right? Thinking so many information, right? The massive scaling model, right? Compute flops, and the scaling law and the parameter count and the training tokens. The larger models need proportionally more data to justify the size. The massive model trained on a small data set is wasted compute, right? Builders, the figure isn't magically better, right? It is strictly mathematically equation. A highly optimized data-rich 7 billion parameter model will consistently outperform a poorly trained 70 billion parameter model, right? So that's why larger is not always better, right? Taming the base model, right? Pre-training, then any case, this fine-tuning part, right? And supervised fine-tuning, teaching, conversation, make it more aligned to your business scenario. But again, when a new release comes, through out the window, preference fine-tuning align with the human values, right? The alignment part, the execution part, like how an AI speaks, output layer, logic vectors, and probabilities, token selection, right? And then a lot of tuning into outputs, greedy, probabilistic, all kind of levels of generation, temperature, Okay, flattens the curve or how creative you want to be, right? Sharpens the curve for predictability. Hard cutoff limiting the selection only the top K rank tokens, right? And top P, dynamic cutoff limiting selection to tokens whose cumulative probability increases, right? And these parameters are your primary APIs to directly reshape the sort of probability distribution, allowing you to manually control the trade-off between the strict accuracy and fluid creativity. Right? And then advanced generation of constraints, considering sampling, right? Zero out non-compliant tokens, yeah, it's required, right? Test time compute, best of whatever, probabilistic nature of AI, snowballing error, right? Because it's probabilistic, right? And theory of engineering, data, knowledge base, architecture skill, alignment, safety, sampling, right? So essentially this is the whole process, right? Yeah, not anything in particular, just a lunchtime chat, right?
人生几何？譬如朝露去日苦读。